doesn't cause much trouble for the primates either, I suspect.
Yeah. And this is what I meant about as far as biocompatibility. They've gone a long way to making so that you can leave those implants in indefinitely.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And in fact, you started out at Georgia Tech, weren't you the group that first did the rat brain controlling a robotic arm across the Atlantic?
Well, it's not quite a rat brain.
Oh, okay. It was just a group of rat neurons. Was that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a few thousand rat neurons, which we were interpreting the output of those. It's a network of a few thousand rat neurons. But one of my disappointments, I guess, with the stuff going on in the Potter Lab was the limitations of what you can do with cortical culture as opposed to an intact brain. By turning that intact brain into a culture, you lose all of the really important three-dimensional structure that's in a brain that's been built up through millions of years of evolution. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of the interesting information is in that structure. And that's one of the reasons I'm working on an intact brain structure now.
I see. Okay. And I want to remind everyone we're getting close to the end of our interview here for tonight. So if you have any further questions, please put your questions in the text chat. Someone did mention Ben Goertzel has been working on AGI and has been speculating about human brain augmentation versus silicon representations, emulations of the brain. And what is going to come first, and what aspect is safer? What main threat do you see? What's the biggest concern as far as what could be a threat to the future of the species and that could cause the most harm with the brain-computer interfacing? I mean, most people talk about intelligence augmentation, some super intelligence being created, and that it wouldn't be friendly and it's going to take over the world, the planet. What do you see as the greatest threat from this type of thing?
It might be my particular life philosophy, but I see, rather than more intelligence in the form of an enhanced human, or I would see a moderate threat from an enhanced human. I'd see even less of a threat from a fully realized artificial intelligence. Because I think stupidity is more of the biggest threat we're facing in our own human stupidity. But an enhanced human could still express, because of the underlying evolutionary structure of our brain, is not going to be able to be modified. Somebody who is just, if they have one aspect of their intelligence, they might be a threat. But a much bigger threat I see is general human refusal to see the world as it is. Inability of human social systems to adapt to rapid change, I think, is a big threat.
Yeah, there does seem to be some quite negative reactions to future concepts. Being in around the life extension, cryonics, and Immortality Institute areas over the last decade. It's certainly run into a lot of societal resistance. And I noticed when I was talking to you before the show that you had mentioned that that's one of the biggest threats to our advancement is human stupidity and selfishness, as you put it. Has there been any particular news items recently or something that you encountered that kind of gave you that perspective that that's one of our the greatest impediments or to advancement, or one of our greatest threats in the future is the stupidity and selfishness? Was there any event that kind of crystallized that viewpoint for you?
I think I've had an increasing frustration with political systems on both sides. So I've lived in the UK now for 4 years. So certainly the 8 years of the Bush administration were quite frustrating to me. And from my perspective and a lot of other people in science, the destruction of American science, science and technology, we lost quite a bit of an edge, I think, over the last 8 to 10 years. And I'm starting to see things like that happening here in the UK now as well.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. I suppose you've seen from your research side of things as well, depending on mostly government grants, that funding for basic science, especially your neuroscience and brain-computer interfacing research that has gone down quite a bit in the last year with the economic troubles?
Yes,
it has.
Certainly. But I would say, well, it's under threat here in the UK. I mean, I'm not. I can't really speak because my lab the lab I work for is very well funded.
Oh, okay.
So there is quite a bit of interest in the stuff we're doing, but in general, basic research funding has fallen the last couple of years, and then there was some other activity going on by the Bush administration that greatly hurt American science, mainly not letting in very talented foreign students, and not the visa process was really tightened up.
It was, or at least it wasn't expanded at all, right? Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that happened with the research funding in the U.S. is that it became very defense focused, and things were going to very hot button issues, so to say, rather than being more evenly spread as they used to be.
And then one thing as well, you've been involved in research and at the academic scene, and what are the hottest research labs right now, or the most important research programs that we should be keeping an eye on that will give us a clue as to how things are progressing over the near term, like the next year or two, especially from your perspective? You've met most of the people in the field, or a lot of the leading lights in the field. What do you have your eye on in the human augmentation, the brain augmentation, or the neuroscience realm, that in the next year or two we're going to hear some results from some experiments? What are the ones that you're watching?
So you have to forgive me because I'm just now starting to come back into watching everything else.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, I've been totally focused on my dissertation for about a year now. But so the ones I'm coming back to watch, I was very interested in the Nicolelis lab at Duke. He's actually in a few different places, and he's partnering with Markham as well at the Brain Mind Institute in Switzerland.
Okay.
So that's some very interesting collaboration going on there. So Nicolelis is one of the first groups to do the primate robot arm interface. So they're recording from the motor cortex of the primate of monkeys, and then getting them to control robotic arms.
Sure. Okay.
There's a similar group working out of Brown, and I forget the name of the company now, but they have been in clinical trials with the device. I believe they're in doing human trials in quadriplegics now. That was the group out of Brown University. Randall Cohen, who I believe gave you a talk not too long ago.
He did. He was on the program. That's right.
It's very interesting what his group has been funded to do, and I hope to have some more conversations with Randall in the future about us possibly collaborating on some future projects.
Yeah, that does sound interesting. Now, someone did mention, we did talk briefly about funding and some of these projects that are going on around the world, and it seems your area of research is well funded. Now, what about other, besides government funding, do you see large tech companies funding a bit more basic research? Like, say, Intel, one of our viewers tonight wondered if Intel was the type of company that would give grants to your type of research, or Google or Amazon and some of these large international corporations.
I haven't seen a lot of Google yet. And Intel, I'm not sure about Intel. Who I have seen recently is NVIDIA is now getting very interested in basic research. So, and we're going to apply for one of their grants now. They're producing these GPU, these graphics processing chips.
Right.
And so that for like the next stage of the software that I'm building, we're going to go from right now I'm running off a single computer doing my data processing. So we're going to be moving to clusters now, and GPU clusters is one of our primary interests for doing that. And so NVIDIA has been giving away some of these very expensive GPU-based boards for large-scale data.
I remember reading they were going to try to get into that market for large data processing from basic research. And it's good to hear that perhaps you'll end up with one of their high-end systems.